Glock trigger disassembly and reassembly. In this video I'm going to show you how to remove and disassemble the Glock trigger and trigger housing mechanism, and we're going to demonstrate this on a Glock 17 Gen 5. Always start by making sure there's no magazine in the gun, no round in the chamber. Double check that because we're going to pull the trigger, point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger. Now we're going to remove the slide like that. So now we want to remove the trigger assembly, which includes the trigger bar, the trigger housing assembly in the back, and of course the actual trigger. So to do that, we need to remove this trigger pin, and we're also going to need to remove the trigger housing pin, which is this one here. So I like to use a smart bench block. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in one of these. This is great for knocking out pins. So I'm just going to press down on this. This is a Glock pin tool. There's a Glock toolkit that's available. I'll put the link in the description as well. So I found that pressing this pin down is a little easier if you work in the slide stop a little bit to kind of get things moving. But you just push that pin right down. And I almost went all the way out. You can pull that trigger pin out. All right, once the trigger pin is out, we want to get the locking block. That's this one here. It's going to have to come out so we can get to the trigger. So just gently and carefully put a screwdriver in here and just kind of lever that up a little bit, and then you can wiggle that out with your fingers, or you can use a screwdriver to lever it up a little bit more. Once that is out, now your ambidextrous slide stop just lifts out of there, just like that. And now we have access to the trigger, but the trigger housing is still held in by the pin in the back here. So this one comes out even easier than the trigger pin. So this pin here, you may not have this back strap on here. This is an extra back strap that came with my Glock 17 Gen 5. You might have a shorter pin, but that just pushes right on out of there. That pin is a plastic polymer pin. The back strap comes off like that. Okay, so now that you have both of these pins removed, all you need to do is kind of reach in here underneath the ejector, pull up a little bit. All right, and this is the trigger assembly. Now once that's out, you can actually disassemble this even further to get this apart. Pretty easy to do. Just be gentle, don't bend anything. Take notice of how things are put together, because you're going to want to make sure it goes back the same way. In particular, this little cross piece here is captured underneath of this little stirrup in here, and you'll see that as I pull it out. So just at a little bit of an angle, just kind of work it out like this, and it'll come on out. All right, that's your trigger bar. Oops. That's your Gen 5 trigger bar there. Alright, so that's the trigger and trigger bar. Okay, now we have the trigger housing assembly. So a couple of things come off of this. The connector here comes off pretty easily, and then the trigger spring inside comes off. To get the connector out, you might be able to just pull it out like this, or you can push it out from the other side. So you want to get something to hold it up on something so it has a place to go. So I like to put it on the back here and just press down on this pin, and the connector falls right on out. Connector looks like this. I know there's other connectors you can put in there for different reasons. Maybe that's what you're doing, I don't know. Now to get this trigger spring out of here, all you need to do is take your Glock punch. We want to push it in this direction, and it's going to push that plastic piece out of that notch. And what's going to happen is when it comes out of that notch, it's going to come out of this notch, and we want to push it up into this notch, and then the whole thing will come out the back. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm just going to use this to put pressure on the spring. When it comes out, see that one, that already went up by itself, but you want to get it up into that notch. Let go, and then the whole thing falls out. Alright, so there is your trigger spring assembly, and you can take that apart. I'm not going to take this apart, but you can just push up on it. Actually, there you go. I'm taking it apart. Alright, and there you have it. That comes apart just like that. All right, that's how that all comes apart. Now let's reverse it and reassemble it. I'm going to put that back together. All right, and that's going to come through this notch, you know, a certain way. Just line that up with the notch, push it up in there, and turn it sideways. All right, so now that's back together. To put that back into, or to put a different one back into this, it's going to go in this way. All right, and again, we want to push this end out through this notch and then push it down and lock it into this notch. And I'll show you that right here. This can be tricky. Different ways of doing it. I'm just going to do it with my finger. I'm just pushing that in like that. I'm going to slide that down into there so it's caught in this notch, and there it is. It's all back together. And then put your connector back together. Get your connector sits like that. So that's easy enough. You just push it right into that slot. Make sure it's nice and square and push it in as far as it goes. If it sticks out a little bit, that's fine. When you put it back in the frame, it's going to hold everything nice and tightly together. Okay, and then to put the trigger bar back on here, the ejector points to the front of the gun. If you're going to put it in, it's going to go like this. Okay, so you want to make sure the front of this gets underneath that stirrup in there. Bring this in at an angle. Underneath there. Once you get that caught under the stirrup, now we need this end to go into the slot in the plastic behind it. Alright, you can move things around a little bit, but be careful not to bend anything. Alright, and it's going to end up going in just like that. Alright, this is underneath the connector, so everything looks just like that. And now you can set everything back into the frame. This goes back here. The trigger's going to kind of follow suit and fall in where it goes. This back piece here ends up sitting like that. And you can see your trigger is going to line up in this hole here. Make sure you can see through that hole. That's where the trigger holes line up. Okay, and now we just need to reverse the procedure. Get your slide lock mechanism, and that sits down right in here. All right, it just sits down there like that. Your locking block is going to slide right in here. It's going to slide in. You'll be able to see through the holes. Now you want to make sure you have a straight shot through this hole here, because the next thing we're going to do is put the trigger pin back in. Alright, so put the trigger pin in as far as you can with your fingers. Set it on something that's not going to scratch your gun. Sometimes you have to work this a little. I've found that if you twist it a little, push down, and once you move things around a little, it'll find its way through there. Alright, it's almost through. I'm just going to give it a little tap with a plastic mallet. Goes right in there. Now we want to go just a little further than that, just a touch. Alright, so it should be just slightly below the surface of the gun, and the other side should be the same, just slightly detented. Everything looks good there. Make sure that this moves freely. Alright, now we want to put this pin back in. And I'm going to put my back strap back on. Alright, this pin sometimes needs a little coaxing to go in, especially with the back strap. It just gives it a little extra tightness there. So I'm just going to tap this a little. Just gentle. Gentle taps will get that in there. Almost through. Okay, your goal is going to get it just a little below the surface here and a little below the surface here, kind of even on both sides. Alright, once that's done, we haven't done anything with the slide, so the slide will go right back on, no problem. Nice and easy. Make sure everything works. Test the slide. Verify there's no round again, even though we just put it together. No magazine, no round, because we're going to test the trigger now. Point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, hold it back, test the reset. Going to rack the slide, reset, press the trigger again, reset, press the trigger again, reset. Alright, everything seems to work. Now the next thing you want to do is a function and safety check. Go to this video up here to go through a bunch of things that we're going to check to make sure everything else, including any safety features, are working. If you like this video, please hit the like button below. Please subscribe. Please check out the description for the tools that we used here today. And thanks for watching.